Today, my guest is Dennis Ghormley. Dennis is with Roof Reconditioners LLC. They are an exclusive certified RoofMax dealer, and they have a product that brings a scientifically formulated product that's 100% safe, plant-based roof regenerating spray treatment that extends the life of your roof. And we're going to talk with him in just a little bit. But first, I want to remind you, if you like the show CREPN Radio, please let us know. We would love to hear from you. You can like, you can share, you can subscribe, and as always, you can leave a comment. We'd love to hear from our listeners. Also, want to remind you, if you'd like to see how handsome our guests are, be sure to check out our YouTube channel, and that's Commercial Real Estate Pro Network on YouTube. With that, I want to welcome my guest, Dennis. Welcome to CREPN Radio.
Well, thank you, Darren. Appreciate the invite to join you. It's been an honor to get to know you.
Well, likewise, and I'm excited to talk with you today, and I'm sure the listeners will appreciate this as well. Before we get started with our topic, Dennis, if you could do myself and the listeners a favor and just share a little bit about your background.
Absolutely. Well, I grew up here in the local area, Portland, Vancouver area, and traveled a little bit, but I always found that this area was home. And grew up in a big family. Dad was pretty much a sole breadwinner, and we grew up Catholic, and so we went to elementary and Catholic high school and Catholic university. And along the way, it wasn't always cheap, so I always was looking for ways to earn extra money. Today, the term, I guess, I never knew it to be this way back when I was younger, but the term today is side hustle. Everybody seems to have a side hustle. And a lot of people I know have side hustles in real estate. So I know a lot of people who are doing that. And anyway, have 5 kids, married, and I just have an opportunity to work with a friend of mine with our local RoofMax dealership, and it's been a fun ride so far.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And with that, why don't we talk a little bit about roofs?
Yeah.
So a roof is a necessary part to any building, not exactly the sexy topic, usually associated with cost. It's necessary if they don't work properly and they leak, they can cause a lot of damage. I know from an insurance standpoint, old roofs are less desirable. In fact, underwriters will require that they be replaced or at least inspected, if they're older, to confirm that they're in good working condition. And when we spoke last week, you kind of introduced this, this product and what you guys do. And I thought, real estate investors could really benefit from knowing this because just of everything we talked about. I mean, roofs are expensive, they're necessary, but anything you can do to keep them working longer is better. So I'm wondering if maybe the best way to start is to talk a little bit about the type of roofs, and then kind of the not your product, but just the history of what's going on in the roofing industry. That makes sense for a starting point?
Sure. There's several different types of roofs, but we focus in on the composite or asphalt shingle roofs. And that, based upon the numbers that I've read and researched, account for about 60% of the roofs in the United States. So it's a pretty big market, and the history of the asphalt roofing shingle itself is actually a byproduct of the crude oil refining process. And up until the early 2000s, waste byproduct of that refining process was used in the manufacturing of asphalt shingle roofs. and there was quite a supply of that. But at that time, due to an improvement in the refining process, actually caused a lower amount of that waste byproduct to be available for the asphalt shingle manufacturing process. So back around that time, and I wasn't involved in the roofing industry back then, so I've learned this recently, that the cost of asphalt shingle roofs increased, and also the manufacturers had to find workarounds to be able to continue to manufacture products to meet the market demand. So what they started doing is adding fillers like fiberglass and other things that would help meet the production demands, but it also caused the shingles to not be as good as they had been previously before the actual refining process improvement. So that's what I am aware of, and there's some causes of the asphalt shingles to start to deteriorate faster than what most people have become accustomed to previously.
So it's not uncommon, I guess what I'm hearing you say is like that the newer roofs, even though they're rated at a 40-year or 30-year or whatever, that you may not get that out of the life expectancy of your roof. Is that
right? Exactly. And the founders of RoofMax, the corporate entity, actually had been in the roofing industry for 30 years, and they had developed a very good reputation as roofers. And when they saw that transition, they made some business decisions that they felt like they couldn't continue to support that, but their response wasn't just to back out of the roofing industry and altogether. They loved the roofing industry, Mike and Todd Fiesel, and they wanted to do something to help the roofing industry, and that's how they got on the track of helping develop this RoofMax solution that helps extend life of the asphalt shingle roofs.
So what is RoofMax?
Well, RoofMax is really the brand name for the solution that's applied to asphalt shingle roofs, and it's actually made out of soybeans, and it's all natural. It was developed in coordination with Battelle Labs, which is the world's largest independent research and development company, and they've been involved in a variety of different products a lot of people are familiar with, including the Xerox process back in the 50s, and they also helped formulate the manufacturing of the CDs, the actual physical CDs. And they also developed the UPC, the barcodes that you see on products today. They also developed cruise control for cars. So they've been in a variety of different industries in innovation and development. So it's really an honor to be associated with an organization like that. And the Mike and Todd Fiesel with RoofMax, I haven't spoken with them directly, but they're just great people from all the interactions that I've heard and on webinars and so forth.
Got it. So the product is a soybean-based product. Is that what I heard you say?
Correct.
Okay. And so is it applied or is it injected, or how is it, how is it used with the roof to get the desired outcome?
Sure. It's actually, the process starts with an inspection of the roof to make sure that that the roof is the right type of roof for what we want to accomplish. We don't want to apply a solution on a roof that actually should be re-roofed. We don't want to give anyone false hope that just because they spray this solution on it, that it's going to protect their roof and their home. So it is a low pressure spray, but before we do that, we go through what we call a roof tune-up. And so we identify potential issues on the roof, flashing and gaskets that either need to be replaced or resecured. loose roofing nails that need to be either replaced or secured, rehammered in before we apply the soybean solution. It's called, I always have to look it up, so bear with me for a second. It's a technical term. It's called soy methyl ethyl. It's a little bit of a tongue twister. Soy methyl ethyl. But the process is called soy fusion technology, and it's drawn out of the soybeans, as I mentioned before.
Okay. And so the inspection, the tune-up, and then is it, you said low pressure sprayed on?
Correct.
To the roof? Okay. All right. And so when a client does this, what are they expecting as far as a benefit, like before versus after?
Well, it really depends upon each client's situation and who they are. If they're a single family homeowner and they're a maintainer, they're looking to extend the life of their roof and they plan on remaining in their home, then and depending upon how old the roof is, if it's a right roof candidate for our solution, then optimally the best time for us to be introduced into the life of a roof is, say, a 30-year roof is usually around the 7 to 10-year age of a roof, because once we apply it, we offer a 5-year transferable warranty. And when we get early enough, potentially we could help a roof that typically is supposed to last 30 years. We can add 5 to 10, maybe 15 years with potentially 3 different treatment applications. Again, that's all predicated on the condition of the roof when we get introduced to the client. If it's a property management company, we have experiences in the RoofMax world where we've been able to give an option that didn't exist before to property managers that would otherwise have to re-roof multi-building property at hundreds of thousands, if not over $1 million, seven-figure cost, and it would give them an opportunity to maybe extend that out 5 years so they can budget more accurately. And anywhere in between that, there's again, talking with realtors and real estate investors, HOA group properties, assisted living with the larger properties. So,
got it. So, cost for a RoofMax application compared to a new roof, is there any kind of a estimate there? I mean, is there? I'm assuming there's a substantial savings as opposed to ripping off and replacing all of the shingles.
Yeah, there actually is, Darren. We found that if we're just looking at a single family home like a 3-2 ranch, 1,500, 1,600 square foot footprint, the roof usually has a little bit larger square footage footprint, but it runs about between 10 to 15% of a re-roof job, and that's why it's so attractive. It creates an option for the homeowner, the property owner, because like you said in an earlier conversation, most people don't look at their roof. They just, as long as it isn't growing moss and the shingles aren't blown off, most people don't look at it. But this is an option for people to consider when they get the bad news that the roof is, not in the greatest condition. That usually comes about a lot of times when there's a real estate transaction and the home inspector has identified the roof as a potential issue.
So In that instance, I mean, I would assume that the transaction is probably what triggers a lot of re-roofing. That the new buyer wants to know that the roof is in good shape. The seller, doesn't want to pay for a roof. Have you had much experience with that? Has it been something with that transferable warranty that the buyers have been receptive to?
Well, yes, and it does, start back at education. That's my biggest role right now. And I appreciate you sharing your platform for me to provide this information. Is that it does come back to education and understanding that this is a viable option. What we've experienced is uh, when when a property is listed, um, and the home inspector gets introduced into the equation. Sometimes, if the home inspector is not aware of RoofMax as a product, um, they may go the way that they normally may go, and justifiably so, that the roof may need to be replaced. But what we found, we have several home inspectors across the country. RoofMax, just to kind of give you the size of it, is that even though it's relatively new in the marketplace, and I'll get back to your original question in a second, but um, we have we're serving over 400 cities, and we have that's in 47 states as of yesterday when I looked on the RoofMax website. So we're not just a small company targeting specific um, uh, cities. We're all across the country. It's just a matter of educating the people who are on the in the trenches, so to speak, like realtors and home inspectors who are doing the work daily, day in and day out. So, but the issue is education and helping them understand that RoofMax isn't going to save every roof, but we should at least be considered as an option for the benefit of both the seller and the buyer. The 5-year transferable warranty is a great tool to be included in the disclosure statements when the property is initially listed, so that when the buyer and the seller have those conversations, well, that allows the buyer to move forward a lot of times with the confidence that the roof is going to um, withstand at least for the next 5 years, and the shingles are will do what they're designed to do. And that's another point, is that we worked with a RoofMax worked with Ohio State University, and they found that with a RoofMax treated roof, the flexibility of a 17-year-old roof, it passed the same materials testing required for new roof shingles. So it does work.
Hmm. So that would be useful. So the warranty, I guess I would think that would be the thing that would be most appealing to a home buyer or a property buyer, um, to know that they've got plenty of time to work with before they have to replace. What what is the uh, yeah, I mean, it's 5 years. I mean, I guess worst case scenario, I'd give you the opportunity to budget for a new roof. Is that kind of what you're getting? Is that worst case scenario is if you had that?
Correct, correct. And every real estate transaction, I'm thinking primarily of the single family or maybe duplex, triplex, fourplex that are considered all residential transactions. It does give the buyer and the seller something else to negotiate on. Maybe they estimate what a new roof costs, and the buyer agrees that in 5 years' time, if it needs it, he or she will assume the responsibility. Or maybe they, split the cost, estimated cost at closing, or it gives another option for the transaction to be completed and consummated for the benefit of the buyer and the seller. And the realtors really have started really understanding how we can help them keep their transactions from going south.
No, that's great. That's great. So just to summarize here, the ideal candidate is somebody who's got a composition roof, correct?
Correct.
And presumably it's somebody that's about to engage in a transaction is probably when they're most conscious of this need, but it's clearly something that you guys, if you're brought in sooner, you think you, or your experience suggests that you can extend the life beyond what the recognized time, or the whatever the option is that the roof was originally suggested to meet.
Right. And just a quick thought on that is we believe that just as painting a house is a normal process of maintaining a property, restaining a deck is a normal process of maintaining that part of the property. We believe that the RoofMax treatment will become a standard step in maintaining the property by applying it onto the roof so that the roofs will last longer. So, and one thing I meant to mention earlier, and I'm glad we're on this topic, is that not only is the product green, but on the front end of, and what I mean by that is it's safe for people, for pets, for vegetation. So there's no, it's been proven to be safe. But on the front end, if we're keeping the asphalt shingle roofs on the homes and the structures longer, it means that less natural resources have to be harvested on the front end to replace those roofs. So we're keeping the natural resources back, you know, whether it be wood or the petroleum that is used in the manufacturing of the shingles, and also we're keeping. I think the last I heard was annually we estimate that we keep over 10 million tons of roof waste out of landfills. So that's on the front end and that's on the back end, and we by applying it, you know, once, twice, or three times during the course of a roof's life, we're helping the roof remain on the roof and keep this home safe and secure.
And out of the landfill, right?
Out of the landfill.
Got
Yeah.
it.
I was honestly, when I first heard that statistic, I was blown away that over 10 million tons, and it's growing. It's amazing.
Oh, that's great. Hey, Dennis, if we could, I'd like to shift gears here a second.
Absolutely.
As I mentioned to you, by day, I'm an insurance broker, and we work with our clients to manage risk. And there's a couple of different strategies that we typically engage in, and one is we can avoid the risk. Two is we can minimize risk, and the third option is we can transfer the risk, which is what an insurance policy is. And recently, I've started asking my guests to identify what they think is the biggest risk. And so, if you're up for it, I would like to ask you, Dennis Ghormley, what is the biggest risk?
Well, that's a great question, because I basically from my perspective, from the Roof Max perspective, is the longer a roof is on the structure, the more risk that property owner has. And I'm going to answer it actually in two different ways. One from the property owner, and then also from my perspective is if we can keep the roof on the property longer, that mitigates the risk of leaks and other issues that come from a failing roof, and also the risk to the environment, where we can keep the roof waste out of the landfills. That's a huge risk to our environment, that if we don't, we keep on throwing stuff away, we're going to run out of space. And from a RoofMax business perspective, you know, I really believe in this product, the service. It adds something that just it's never existed before. And the longer that the biggest risk I have is not being action oriented enough, having massive action to get the word out, to educate people then that just means that more people are running a risk of making decisions that they just don't have all the information. I'm all for having all the information as possible. Eventually, you have to make a decision, but there's just that perspective of having information that helps make an informed decision.
No, that's great. Dennis, where can the listeners go if they would like to learn more or connect with you?
Sure, sure. Before I answer that question, Darren, I just want to make sure. I know we focused a little bit on primarily the single family, but I do want to make sure that in respect to the real estate investors, they invest in a host of different types of properties, from single family, multifamily. We also work with property management companies that have larger complexes. One example of that is we're actually here locally, and also one of our other dealers in another part of the country worked with a larger property. We're working with an 18 building property that, unfortunately, they hired someone who used a pressure washer on asphalt shingle roofs, and unfortunately that did some damage. And so we're working with them, trying to figure out how we can. And the roof was, I think, only about, well, it's around 10 years of age, maybe even a little bit less than that. But so we're trying to figure out a way to help them and they didn't have the money in the HOA assessment fund to pull a new roof job together, and which re-roof was, I heard, somewhere between a little plus or minus $1 million. So it's a huge thing. So with us being an option, it creates some possibilities for the HOA owners or the property managers to reconsider what they can do moving forward. So, but answering your question, where people can reach me, my email is dghormley, so it's DGHORMLEY @roofmax.com, and Max is with 2 X's. So dghormley @roofmax.com. Our website, our local dealer website, is roofrc.com. That's for roof reconditioners, roofrc.com. And the RoofMax website is roofmax.com, RoofMax.com. And there's some great educational videos on both those websites that if people want to know more, that's the place to go.
Got it. Well, Dennis, I've learned a lot, and I've enjoyed it. I'm certain the listeners will have gained a great deal as well on how to extend the roof life of their composition roof, and hopefully they'll get in touch with you. Before we go, just remind our listeners that if you like this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Remember, the more you know, the more you grow. That's all we've got this week. Until next time, thanks for listening to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CREPN Radio.